Okay guys, we are going to continue talking about biological macromolecules. Remember, there are 4 that are important to life. There's carbohydrates, nucleic acids, proteins, and lipids. So these are very large and they're very important to life. So, first let's talk carbohydrates in detail. Carbohydrates, sorry guys, always have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in them. Carbon and hydrogen tend to be equal amounts. Carbon and oxygen tend to be equal amounts. Hydrogen tends to be about double for most sugars. That number can change, and that'll tell you the difference in different types of sugars. But the general formula for a carbohydrate is CxH2xOX. So C6H12O6, C5H10O5. These are going to be a general formula. Now, there are some other options, as you can see on the picture there. A monosaccharide is a single sugar. It's the simplest one. Those include pretty much glucose and fructose. Glucose and fructose in different combinations make up pretty much all other sugars and starches. So the basic role of the simple sugar is to do work. The body uses it to create the energy it needs to move. It's also got the carbon backbone that ends up making up most of the other stuff in your body. And then it is the basis in which all other things are made. So, carbohydrates are very soluble in water, which means that they will easily break with water, so hydrolysis. With that, oxygen, hydroxyl groups, and having hydrogens, what ultimately ends up happening is when you put water in, it'll bond and it'll break them apart. So anything that had been fused together will become broken apart into smaller sugars when introduced with water. Notice that most of the names of sugars are going to end in ose. So if you hear ose, you can assume it's a sugar. Glucose, fructose, lactose, maltose, galactose. These are all different types of sugars. But the 2 monosaccharides are glucose and fructose. Disaccharides are when you put 2 of those together, and you can put a glucose plus glucose and fructose plus glucose. All these things put together in different ways is going to give you different disaccharides. So disaccharides, for the most common, is going to be sucrose, which is table sugar, and that's a glucose plus a fructose. And you can see on this picture, you had your glucose and your fructose, and they have become dehydrated where the water has left, leaving a bond together. So, questions. Which of the following is an example of a monosaccharide? Sucrose, glucose, fructose, or both? Did you say both? Good job. Okay. Saccharides are soluble in water because they are nonpolar. They can form hydrogen bonds. Carbon is highly electronegative, or they are unsaturated. Did you say B? They can form hydrogen bonds? That is true. Alright, what is another name for a simple carbohydrates? Sugars, saccharides, monosaccharides, or all of the above? Get your answer. Did you say all of the above? You are correct. Sugars and saccharides are going to mean pretty much the same thing, and monosaccharide is a simple sugar. If we were talking about a more complex carbohydrate, you would be talking about disaccharides, polysaccharides, starches. Polysaccharides are polymers of glucose, so putting together many chains of the sugar. And different organisms link them together in different ways. The 3 most important ways are starch, glycogen, and cellulose. Starch is going to be long-term energy storage for plants. So the plants make their own sugars through photosynthesis. That's going to be your monosaccharide, your glucoses. And then if it doesn't use it, because it does need to use its own sugars to work, if it doesn't use it, it's going to store it as a starch. And then when we eat it, we can break down that starch and utilize the glucose in that. And they can be branched or unbranched. This one is an unbranched, nice straight line. This one is branched. It's branched off, making a more complex structure. Glycogen is how animals store their energy. So if you eat a big meal, your body uses the glucose it needs, and then it'll put the rest in a glycogen store, and your body will use it when you have run out of the glucose that's in your bloodstream. So if it's been a long time since I ate, my body will start breaking down the glycogen stores to get to the glucose, so then I have the glucose for the energy I need. So glycogen will be broken down to obtain glucose, and your insulin helps break that down. The last one is cellulose. Cellulose is in the walls of plants. It holds a lot of sugar. You can see it's pretty much, it looks just like the starch, but very complex, making this cross-linked, very long sheet. The bonds between each monomer are really strong. That cross-linking makes it strong with those hydrogen bonds, and it's not something that's easily broken down. Animals need help. Our digestive systems alone are not meant to break down cellulose. And if we were an animal that needed to get all of our energy from every part of the plant, we would need to be able to break down cellulose. So animals have cecum or rumen. The herbivores and or omnivores, they'll have a cecum or a rumen to help break down that cellulose so they can get all the energy out of it. Humans no longer have one of these, but we used to. But as an omnivore, and our diet has changed where we get a lot more of our energy from the meat, that we don't necessarily need to get every drop of energy from the plants, so we don't need to do this. The thing that allows cellulose to break down is rumen or cecum. The cecum is what our appendix used to be. It's a little pocketing at the end of the small intestine next to the large intestine. And the rumen is another chamber in the stomach. They have the four-chambered stomach for like cows. In both places, what's in there is symbiotic bacteria, and this is bacteria that will break down the cellulose into the smaller monomers, so then our body can use that glucose. And so symbiotic is a mutually beneficial thing. So the bacteria in our stomachs or in the cecum or rumen, those things are allowing us to break down the glucose or the cellulose to get that energy out of it. The bacteria get a nice warm place to live, plus food source coming into it, and then we get the broken down version, which helps us out a lot. So symbiotic bacteria are very helpful for breaking down cellulose. To get energy from a polysaccharide, we have to break them down into their monosaccharides, so you have to use hydrolysis to break that. And so again, you have your sucrose, and then you add water, and water will come in and bond here and here, here and here, allowing them to split. Okay, so let's quiz. The fundamental unit of a polysaccharide is fructose, glucose, sucrose, or A and B. Did you say glucose? You are correct. Good job. Starch and glycogen are both used for energy storage. Which of the following is not true of these two polysaccharides? Breakdown of the molecules produce carbon dioxide. They contain easily hydrolyzed bonds. They are products of photosynthesis, and synthesis of these molecules are endergonic. So which one of these is not true? Not true is going to be they're not all parts of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis will produce the glucose, but what it won't do is it won't make the actual starch. The plant will build those together, and glycogen won't be made in photosynthesis either. But as the body or the plant, for that matter, break down them, that's cellular respiration, and one of the byproducts that is carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is released from that. They are easily hydrolyzed, so when water is added, it will break apart, and they are endergonic, which means they need that input of energy to break them apart, or to make them. Breaking them apart is quite easy. Okay. Cellulose is found in plants but not animals because it's produced by chloroplasts. It's the structural molecule of cell wall. It requires more energy to produce plants receive unlimited energy from the sunlight, or it provides the green coloration to plants. Did you say B? It is the structural molecule of the cell wall. Good job. All right. And that's it for this video. We'll move on to nucleic acids in the next video. So remember, carbohydrates are going to be many sugars over and over. Glucose is the fundamental one. There's also fructose that will work with it. You have disaccharides, which are 2 sugars. You have polysaccharides, which are many sugars. To create those, you can use a dehydration synthesis. To break them, you'll hydrolyze. Cellulose is in the plant cell walls. Glycogen is how animals store their energy, store their glucose, and starch is how plants store their glucose. All right, have a great day.